This artist's Polaroids sell for thousands of dollars.
It's just, I ran out of ideas.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, Andy Warhol took candid, unplanned, and sometimes unflattering Polaroids of celebrities to show their raw, true nature. He believed in the future that everyone was going to be a celebrity, and that celebrities were no different from regular people. If you try to get your hands on one of these, the price tag can be upwards to $60,000. In 1971, Polaroid introduced the big shot. Andy Warhol, who was already famous by then, took it up and started taking pictures all the way up till 1987, the year of his death. These years would become known as Warhol's Polaroid years, during which he amassed thousands of photos. Warhol was fascinated by the instantaneous imagery and the new technology that Polaroid came with. It allowed him to be quick, reflecting his views on culture.
Do you think you're going to go out of style, your type of movies?
We're out of style already.
You're out of style. Why is that?
Well, because things happen so quickly.
Okay, so they weren't exactly candid and unplanned. They were quick in the moment, but they were used for his paintings, so he could find the best portrait to actually go forward with a painting. In the early 1900s, the United States was filled with factories, and in 1962, Andy Warhol thought, why shouldn't art be made in a factory? Before using Polaroids, he used found photographs from magazines, prints, these sorts of things, and the paintings he did make became super recognizable and famous throughout the world. In a lot of ways, Andy took inspiration from the world itself. From society, from people, even from liquor, and a man who remains unidentified in one of his portraits. Perhaps just some random passerby. And he didn't limit himself to that. For high society clients and celebrities, the fee was cited for around $25,000 for a commissioned portrait. And although the list of well-known figures were mainly private, we do know a few people who sat for him. People like Liza Minnelli. And here she is, years later, sitting in front of Warhol's paintings of her and her parents. People weren't the only thing that he took photos of. He has countless still life photography, things like a bunch of shoes, a lot of perfume, knives, glasses, and a drink, and even some bananas, maybe an ode to an earlier work for the Velvet Underground. Warhol blurred the lines between mass media and fine art, and his work with Polaroids anticipated our modern obsession with instant images, mass production, and that soon everyone will have 15 minutes of fame. Sometimes it's easy to sit in the future and look back and think, what is so special about this?
All sorts of opposites combined in one image, but that is Warhol after all.
There's one nice picture painted about 100 times different colours, but I mean, I think it's just a bit boring, to be honest.
He was always sort of particularly adept at capturing a time, and possibly the time isn't really interesting anymore, and that's why the art isn't really particularly interesting.
But at the time, serious photographers mostly used traditional film. Polaroids were seen as a casual novelty or family toys. Warhol was one of the first people to legitimize them, and this is one of the overarching themes of his career, gapping the bridge between low art and high art. This bridging the gap inspired other artists to experiment with instant film. People like David Hockney.
I made a little photographic experiment with the Polaroid by putting 30 of them together, made a photograph of this house in a way that I've been trying to paint the house from three different viewpoints. Now, the space is an illusion, I was aware of that, but the time is not an illusion. It is real and accounted for in the number of pictures.
The idea that Polaroid itself could be an art, not just a means to an end, gained traction because Warhol treated the Polaroid with such importance. There are a lot of formats in photography, and oftentimes, the type of format is further giving expression to what is being photographed, like the dimensions of a painting. But for Warhol, Polaroids contributed to the identity as surface. By producing portraits that were all similar in format, Warhol was emphasizing the looks, the fashion, the image of the sitters rather than expressing it through format. So, what happened to all these photographs? Well, they're held in collections, but you can also purchase them yourself right now as this video is being made. There are some on auction, and the highest one is $60,000. Some of them go for $25,000 a pop, others for $40,000, and these are photos of notable celebrities. The cheapest one I found was $6,000, although it's a little bit different from the Marilyn Monroe picture. That sold for almost $200 million. And these are getting sold. I can think of a few rich people who would want a portrait of Basquiat taken by Andy Warhol. I find Warhol's legacy incredibly interesting. On one side, you have these prolific, huge artworks that are so famous they almost become parody of themselves. This is what Warhol is known for.
No, I just do whatever I do, just to get by.
You can just go inside that world and never come out of it and still have a lot of stuff to look at. But then there's these Polaroids. It's like a whole other subsection of his work that sort of goes unnoticed. It's not as popular, but it's way more intimate, and it's right in line with what he is saying as an artist in general. In Warhol's own words, everybody looks alike and acts alike, and we're getting more and more that way. Warhol never got to see social media's impacts on the world, but going through his Polaroid albums sure does feel like scrolling through an Instagram feed. I've personally seen some of his artworks in real life, but I've also gone to museums like the Louvre and seen the classical portraits made throughout the millennia. And I personally have to say, although I really like Warhol, it's a little bit more impressive to see a Rembrandt, but I think that's sort of the point. These paintings aren't just paintings, they're portraits. They're the equivalent of going out and hiring a photographer to take pictures of you. And however you want to see it, Warhol's portraits are just more relevant to our society today. Before the internet, before phones, he sort of predicted the future.
Why did you decide to do pets?
Well, I got tired of doing people.
How did you actually do them? What's the process involved?
Well, I take a photograph, and then I blow up the photograph, and then paint on the photograph, and then screen over the photograph.
Would it matter who took the photograph?
Well, gee, I like to meet the dog, so I always take the photograph.
A lot of these portraits are sort of mundane and probably easy to take, but the overall result and meaning behind them are interesting. I feel like Warhol is in a lane of his own. He rides the line between really great pop art and almost McDonald's-esque overproduced contemporary slop that so many people dislike today. It's the meme of modern art. I don't really get it.